Welcome to the Verboncen podcast. I am your host Elise Luyckx. In our world of constant change, we often try to build perfect systems that never fail. But is that even possible? Today I am joined by Edzo Botjes. Edzo is a strategic architect, researcher, and a leading voice on anti-fragility. He spent his youth in a car workshop, which gave him a unique view on how things break and how they can be fixed. In this first part of our conversation, we explore why robust isn't enough and how organizations can actually grow stronger through shocks and uncertainty. Get steady to shift your mindset from avoiding failure to embracing it. Let's dive in. Do you want to sharpen your skills as an enterprise architect? Welcome to Verboncen, the podcast where we combine insights from experienced professionals with real-world examples from the world of architecture. My name is Elise Luyckx, and I am your guide through the layers of enterprise architecture, making it less mythical and more concrete. Today we're speaking to Edzo Botjes. He's a strategic architect and researcher who operates at the intersection of technology, organizational design, and system resilience. He is a prominent voice in the European architecture community, known for his deep expertise in cloud security and his pioneering work on anti-fragility. Edzo doesn't just design systems, he studies how they survive and thrive in a world of constant uncertainty. So Edzo, I've introduced you as someone who bridges the gap between hard tech and system philosophy.
Yeah.
In your own words, what is the common thread that connects your work in security with your passion in anti-fragility?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. My opinion is that in the end goal, every person and every collaboration of persons have a desire to stay relevant. And I think that's also the objective of security and risk management and enterprise architecture and anti-fragility. And what I like a lot about security, that when I started in that domain, when I was like, I don't know, I was really young, I think 14 or something, 16. There were already hackers that could hack the whole system with 0 days and get through your firewall into your system. And I tried to protect it. And then after a few years, I found out this is a battle you're never going to win. People are making errors or misaligned configuration with intention, etc. And so quickly after a few years, I accepted that you cannot be it's impossible to prevent that you're being hacked. It's impossible to prevent somebody entering your system. Mm-hmm. And anti-fragility is embracing that knowledge that something bad will happen that you could not foresee. From a fundamental level, you cannot know all the things. And I think so. I try to preach to everybody to stay humble and accept that there are things you can't predict. And that's the overlap between anti-fragility and security. And I think also the importance for enterprise architecture and the broader field.
Mm. So it's easier to break things than to build them sometimes.
Yeah. Breaking things is really easy. Yeah. So that's called, it's red teaming called in the security, and the blue teaming is trying to prevent it. And it's basically impossible, just like with legislation. Currently we have in the Netherlands, but I think it's at least also for Europe, there's so much legislation and they are contradictory. So it's almost impossible I think it's impossible, but I haven't read the research on this, but to comply to all the regulations. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same for if you are designing a tool. People can misuse a hammer for bad things, but they can also use it for beautiful things. Michelangelo was created with the hammer and other tools, but so yeah. I think that's, if you want to create something beautiful, you can also give people the option to do just something not so beautiful, depending on your standpoint. And you cannot design against that. It's impossible.
Yeah. And we live in a world that, since our previous conversation, feels to me especially more increasingly volatile. But since we've touched upon anti-fragility, before we dive in deeper, allow me to introduce it to the listeners first. And correct me if I'm wrong on this definition, but I see anti-fragility as an ility concept, not like a robust system. That a robust system simply resists a shock, but anti-fragile systems, they actually get better and stronger because of those shocks that happen. You said that organizations struggle to stay relevant. Is this how anti-fragility helps an organization, or do you see it differently?
No, just like this. So, so my background is computer science at university, and later on business informatics. And usually we were trained to look at a problem and create the most beautiful, most elegant solution for that problem. But it was usually a static solution. So for computer science, you look at a problem and you depict the sub-problems, and then you solve the sub-problems. With that, you solve the whole problem. And that's like building a really nice wall or creating a really nice Lego building. So there's a beauty in that, but you only will create robust buildings or robust programs if that, with a precondition and end condition. And anti-fragility is about, what if robust is not enough? What if there are things happening, requirements, changes that totally tumble your beautiful building and your beautiful, robust software product? And what accounts for software accounts for real life buildings, and it's also for where people are involved. People are really interesting beings that do things you can't predict. And again, then they create Michelangelo and the Mona Lisa and create beautiful hanging gardens. But that freedom also means that you cannot predict it, so you cannot create a robust environment for that. And that's anti-fragility, that you look beyond robust.
Does it imply that we should embrace a certain level of chaos in the IT landscapes, in what architects design?
Yeah. Yeah, and also outside. So one of the notions is that architects in the so when we talk about architects in the IT domain, I am a believer that it's about business and IT, and that's the same thing. And I'm a believer that people provide affordance to the tooling, and they use the tooling for beautiful and not so beautiful things. So you can never design the IT in isolation. And therefore you should focus on the possibilities you can create with the IT. And then you need to embrace the chaos and embrace the unforeseen, because you cannot predict all the creative stuff people will do, or all the unforeseen stuff that will happen in the context where your people and your technology are operating. So the embracing the chaos is important, and embracing for the unknown is important, and also about more focusing on the adaptability and see how. I find a beautiful example, the Unix philosophy, and I don't know if you know, the people that don't know, it's a nice Wikipedia page on that. But in the Unix way of living, and therefore also Linux, is you create a small program that does one thing, and that one thing that program should do really well. And if you create a lot of those small programs that have a clear function and deliver that very well, people can use that function in different contexts and create different value from that, and in combining create different value from that. And there you isolate your program for a lot of unforeseen things because it does one thing and all the other stuff not. Therefore, the complexity is reduced, so you can a little bit predict what's going to do. And you provide the people that will use that program in a certain context a lot of freedom to create beautiful stuff. And in EIT, we have the tendency to create a lot of big projects and a lot of complex systems and whatever. And that's so much complexity you cannot manage or oversee. And then we create called governance to get more requirements or more life cycle management. But in the end, you can't oversee all the things. And that's my advice to a lot of people. Make it smaller and see how you can empower people to be creative and do other stuff without going bankrupt, and focus more on what is needed for your teams to be resilient, what is needed for your organization to don't go bankrupt if one bug appears or one feature is used in a way you didn't want to, and search for those things. I think there's way more value in that.
Can I interpret it like to focus less? Maybe traditionally, enterprise architects, there's a lot written on the hard governance and spending energy to prevent systems from failure, for example, and from to be predictable.
Yeah.
Instead of that, we should be trying to be instead of more robust, less fragile.
So yes and no. I would say experiment more. So being fragile per se is not bad, because I learned a lot when I fell with my bike when I was a small kid. But after a while, I didn't need the side wheels anymore, because I knew how to prevent me from falling a little bit. And I didn't use the wall anymore to brake and don't fall over. It's the I think you need to you should be very conscious about which part is fragile, which part is robust. And that combination you can use to become more anti-fragile, because you need all the things. You need signal triggers that warn you that something is going on. And if something, the old school Nokia phone was really durable, but if it fell on the ground, it scattered in many pieces. And the energy that is used to scatter all the pieces caused that it didn't break. And you could put all the pieces together and your phone still works. So, and that's the same with your process in your organization, that things might go wrong. And anti-fragile is about embracing things that go wrong and look for the pain, but use it as a way to sense what's going on and to learn. It's like your circuit breaker in your fuse box. That part is fragile because it saves the rest of your house.
Yeah.
And it's same with your skin. Your skin is fragile to save the rest of your body. It's so it's not per se less fragile, but so I usually say try to optimize learning. Give people the opportunity to learn, to have conversations, to walk, to make mistakes. And if they make mistakes, make certain that nobody dies, for example, in hospital, or that nobody goes bankrupt in a company, so that there's a safe environment to learn. And then full power on that learning.
It kind of makes me think on the. I only know the Dutch word, like the buffer zone with cars. The krukkelzone.
Yeah.
They have the cars. They have this. Basically, a car is like a driving safety cage, and then around it there's this area when you have impact that it can crumble, and it will take some of the highest impact and protect whoever is inside. And I also remember that when I learned driving, my parents bought me the cheapest car that they could find, which is also kind of a safety measure, to let me drive with something that's already dented on all kind of sides, instead of letting me drive my dad's company car. It's a way of building in safety and accepting that impact may happen, and you hope it will not be deadly.
And I think somewhere we forgot to do that in IT. So we had that notion. So when I started in IT, I could fiddle around on my own computer before going into the big production mainframe. And on the big mainframe, everybody had their own isolated environment, and I could fiddle around, but I could never touch the real stuff. And at that time, we had like rat races that were rapid application development races, where people from all over the Netherlands came to Eindhoven or Delft University, and then at the technical university at really boring rooms. Everybody got the same assignment on a Saturday. Then, okay, now every team goes programming, and then whoever had the most functions available at the end of the day won a nice trophy. And during that game, people were surprised with different requirements, or suddenly the hardware was disabled. And even project manager did it. At large projects, they walked around and then suddenly switched off a computer and then made certain that you had saved all your stuff. All those kind of chaos tricks, I don't see them anymore. All those safety, those buffers, they are gone, and we have some quality gates and CI/CD pipelines, but most big systems are. If one system goes down, everything topples down. We have seen that with AWS, and we have seen that with so many stuff. And when it topples down, or you have a zero-day bug is found in some kind of tool, then the exposure for the company is immediately really big. Because we put all the data in one file, and we put all the blah blah. And somewhere we forgot that stuff can break, and didn't think about that we don't go bankrupt or not too many personal data is out there if that one database is breached. And I don't know why that happened and how that happened, but we can unlearn it. We can go back to more safety zones in there and just accept, it will break. Just like here, we are using one tool to record this, but we have like already 3 other tools to also record it in. We have redundancy in here, so but somewhere we focused on lean, and we focused on everything STP and everything monoculture. And I think that's we are on time to reevaluate that.
Yeah. And do you have any clue why we lost this space in IT? Is it a cultural thing? Because often something else that I'm now reflecting on is people often deliver on what they are rewarded for. And very often I see that companies ask from their IT departments more control, more certain outcomes. So this actually moves away the concept of experimentation and see what happens if we try X, Y. What's your point of view on this? Why did IT lose the ability to experiment, so to speak?
I don't know. So there are a lot of factors we can speculate on and are nice to speculate on. But what I do know is that if I look at my own field, it's costly to have duplications in your system. So redundancies are expensive. And not only expensive, and on multiple ways. So you need to have knowledge about the other technology if you have multiple technologies. And knowledge is also experience. So it's not only reading and knowing, but also know how to apply it. So that's really difficult. Most people in IT find it difficult to manage one cloud. There are not that many cloud engineers that are versed in Google, in AWS, and Azure. And then we only talk about the 3 hyperscalers, not even about all the other possible cloud providers. And it's the same for programming. I personally still haven't learned Go or Rust. So everybody has their max bandwidth on technology they know and ways of operating together. And I know that if you do a really cheap way of resilience, where efficiency is more important, that type of resilience is less versatile and is more fragile than a more expensive version of resilience, where you have a lot of redundancy and experiments and overhead and blah, blah, blah. And I think there, at least that factor, I know that plays a role. So efficiency is really important, and not accepting that other people do it another way. So the drive to have a monoculture is also really important. So when I did one of the first presentations on this topic, when I did my master's, it was at the DADD, Digital Architecture Design Days, or the Dutch Architecture Designs, and I'm really bad in abbreviations with my dyslexia, so sorry for everybody at the DADD. But one of the questions was, what is your advice? Should every programmer in a company have a different programming language? And I said, yeah, from an anti-fragility point of view, that is really important. Because then if there's no support anymore for a certain technology, then you don't go bankrupt. And you're versatile, and you can learn the most of things. Because every language has their good things and their bad things. And the person that asked me the question said, yeah, but for a CTO or manager, that would be horrible. I said, yeah, but it's more resilient than everybody using Java or everybody using .NET. But it has downsides, yes. You need to find a different common language and different passion. So efficiency and common language is the thing. And I think there are way more reasons. And I think also we made it, how do you call it? I want to say made it too complex, but I don't think that's the right word. I had a presentation about digital sovereignty and digital autonomy. And my statement was that the idea from now is from complexity-wise not really different than 30 years ago. We still have a CPU that does instructions, and we still need to fill in some data, and the data is being processed. But we created a really complex shebang around it. And the question is, do we need it for the function it delivers? And that whole theater, that is also part of why we do less experimenting, because we put our energy in other stuff. And that's, yeah, I'm now 44 or something. And it's, I'm feeling old. When I look at certain stuff and I think, okay, but do we need those multi-layer high stacks? And is it to deploy a website? And for that many requests, do we really need such a complex management system with all kinds of at a certain bank, I helped introducing a maturity system around monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
And we ask a lot of teams in that organization to do a self-assessment and assess each other. And one of the teams that achieved their award for a certain maturity level was the team that had the HP non-stop system and tandem mainframe. Because in that old school system, a lot of process monitoring was there, a lot of restarting of process was there. All kinds of stuff you need to have a certain level of maturity was default in that system. Mm-hmm. And that was many years ago. And still I think, are we 30 years later in time really that more advanced or not? I'm not certain. It's
okay. We in the previous conversation you already also mentioned yourself that there seems to be the same mistakes or pitfalls that people fall into, and now you're educating enterprise architects on that. What are the top points, key points where you want people to be more informed about something that keeps coming back, so to speak?
One of the examples I mentioned is not something I address in my teachings. So the example I mentioned was the OWASP top 12 now, I think, about the common risks. That people that are in security are getting a bit frustrated that every year that list is almost the same.
Yeah.
From enterprise architecture, I try to communicate a few things. One is that organizations, enterprises are social constructs because we are people. And the social science is something different than the science that is needed to run a computer. And that means that the capability of a person to understand what is going on between people is a different capability than to translate numbers into other numbers. And it means that people in IT are really good in discrete logic. This list needs to be sorted and going into there and blah, blah, blah. And that's a different domain than today I'm not happy and therefore I will not grant you this change request. And to have understanding that those things both play a role in how your organization functions, but are totally different in concept. I think that's one of the things I try to communicate, that people don't. We never did it in enterprise architecture. In all the books I have on enterprise architecture, what makes you tick as a human is not the social science, is not part of those books. And I find that limiting in our development on enterprise architecture, enterprise governance, and all those topics. So I try to communicate, because if we don't do that and we only make big projects, then we keep on failing.
This is actually something I want to go in for part 2 of the conversation, maybe even the next part of the podcast release. That was just the beginning of my talk with Edzo Botjes. It's a lot to process, right? The idea that we should stay humble and accept that we cannot predict everything is a powerful lesson for any architect. But we aren't done yet. In the next episode, we move from the theory of systems to the reality of people. We will talk about why our architecture diagrams might be rubbish if you don't understand the social side of your company. Make sure you don't miss part 2. Subscribe to the channel, follow us on your favorite podcast app, and I will see you in the next episode of Verboncen. Many thanks to Pieter-Jan Rombout for producing and editing, and to Lennart Busset for the intro music. And of course, thank you for listening, and see you next time